sent to me of the reality that is her daily life every day of the year. I spoke on the motion yesterday in recognising the need for greater Australian support for those in our community who give their lives to care for their disabled family members, and regrettably I ran out of time before I could read this letter fully into the Hansard. This mother is a member of a new organisation in my electorate known as the Sutherland Shire Disability Accommodation Action Group, formed out of the desperation of parents in gaining appropriate supported accommodation for their adult disabled children. She begins, "Whenever I read about another mother killing her disabled child, I wonder whether it will come to that for me, and would I be able to do it? People do become desperate and overwhelmed. My disabled daughter, S, has become my world and I hers, and therein lies the problem. She was born in 1978, induced for the doctor's convenience as he was going on holidays. She turned blue and stopped breathing. She had streptococcal pneumonia and was found to be 4 to 6 weeks premature. She spent a month in special care. From about 6 months of age, I knew there was something terribly wrong. Then followed years of doctors and therapies until I finally had to admit you can't mend a broken brain. Eventually she attended a special school. Transport was provided, but I needed to be there before and after school, so full-time work was out of the question. One problem with going to school out of the local area was that she had no friends to play with, and so all her time was spent with me. Eventually I found a job with a small company run by a couple with children of their own. They were very flexible with hours and emergencies and phone calls. I brought S to work with me on school holidays. In 1996, my marriage, like so many others involving disabled children, had come to the point where I took S and left. I had calculated all eventualities before taking such a big step, or so I thought. I was working for a small company and S was travelling by train to her day program and managing alone with a few phone calls until I got home. 6 weeks later, the small company collapsed. I quickly found a job with a big company, but no flexibility, longer hours and no phone calls. S went on a 4-night respite camp for a break. When she returned, something was terribly wrong. She didn't sleep, muttered all night to someone, cried all day, got lost following voices and didn't remember to eat or drink. Eventually, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, brought on by her absolute terror of being apart from me. Even with hospitalisation and treatment, the situation was horrendous. She was drugged, terrified, and either constantly crying or staring at the wall for hours. In the 30 minutes it took me to get to work each day, there would be 10 to 12 phone messages awaiting for me, with her just crying. I couldn't travel alone, she couldn't travel alone, or stay home alone. Finally, the company gave up. I was fired and thus became her full-time carer. People sometimes think carer equals no full-time job, equals what a life. Well, imagine all you do for a young child, dressing them, washing them, cleaning up after their accidents, and then imagine doing it for a 28-year-old woman who won't learn to do more than she does now. Imagine never being able to go anywhere alone, not even to see a friend for a chat or a cup of coffee without your child with you. Imagine listening to her cry all night because you have a cough and she fears you might die and leave her. Imagine lying awake every night worrying about what will happen to her. We do have respite, but only 1 day a month. And now, 4 years ago, I was diagnosed as Parkinson's with having Parkinson's disease. My caring time is finite. It will be the most difficult task to settle S into a group home or similar accommodation, but it must be done while I'm here and able to help her cope. I have been told that the only way to get accommodation is to abandon her at a police station. I can't do that. She would retreat from reality forever. She is my problem and I will not leave her unresolved. What do we want? Peace of mind, I think, for both of us. For me, not having to abandon her to be at death's door and still not know if she will have somewhere to live. And for her, relief from the terror. If something happens to Mum, where will I go? She knows she can't manage alone. Vague promises are not enough anymore. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is a sobering letter, and one that I couldn't put down, and one that we here in this place have a duty to address. Now is the time for some significant real measures to be put in place to assist the many thousands of carers across Australia in a similar position. Now is the time to really look seriously at how we accommodate in supported accommodation in local areas for people who are adults with disabilities. It's the issue of supported care for adult children is one that really does reach into the hearts of many people across my electorate and across Australia. They must be located in their local areas, not in a drive that's 2 hours away. They must be available to their parents and family members to be able to continue to support them and to include their disabled family member in family gatherings and in other social activities. Mr Deputy Speaker, one way that we could practically assist carers and our senior citizens, indeed every other person who is dependent on welfare, is to allow them to actually earn a little more money than is actually given to them under welfare. I put for consideration the suggestion that we could allow them to earn the $6,000 threshold that is available to all wage earners, to yourself and myself, that we can earn before we actually have a tax liability. Such an amount would supplement the welfare payments and be of no cost to the government outlays. So if we consider this, all wage-earning Australians have a $6,000 tax-free threshold before incurring any tax liability. Welfare recipients should also be able to have the same consideration as a matter of fairness and equity as fellow Australians. To secure this threshold, welfare recipients could be asked to undertake a lesson or two perhaps in home budgeting on an annual basis. It would also be available, of course, to Indigenous Australians. Amounts exceeding the 6,001 threshold would be deducted from the welfare payment as presently is the practice. But the benefits of this measure would include: there would be no cost to budget outlays. It would encourage people to benefit from the socialisation that comes with employment, even if it is only part-time. It would lead to, or it could lead to, more permanent work. It will give recipients, including some on the disability support pension themselves, the opportunity to make a little extra income. It will lead to a better understanding of household finance, and it will assist some recipients out of the welfare mentality. It will impose a work ethic and self-discipline, and it will provide personal empowerment and increased self-esteem. It will provide recipients with the safety net of the full social welfare security base while enjoying a limited participation in the workforce. I would like to hear some feedback on this area, on this idea, and which I'm sure would be welcomed by welfare recipients, and it would assist them in a practical way to alleviate financial hardship and even rise above the poverty experienced by many Australian families. Even while we all here are aware that there are challenging times upon us, Australia is still the lucky country for so many Australians. It is our duty here in this place to ensure that that luck is shared with all and every fellow Australian that we can possibly reach. The Governor-General said in his address that the government will implement a new policy agenda focused on social inclusion. The focus on social inclusion aims to improve the opportunities for all Australians to participate fully in Australian economic and social life. Well, the Rudd Labor government did not get off to a very good start by attacking carers and senior Australians. These are the very Australians that should be the focus of the government's intention to implement social inclusion. It is our duty in the opposition benches to be ever watchful that exercises such as the carers and seniors debacle are not repeated, and that we end up with government policies that actually deliver social exclusion. Australians deserve better than that, and I accept my part in the responsibility to ensure our fellow Australians receive the fullest opportunities that being in this wonderful country can deliver. After all, Mr Deputy Speaker, it is their birthright.